Long before anyone in Blackwater Valley began calling Leonard Muir a mountain man, he had been the person they trusted to bring people home. He had known the North Cascades in every season. He knew how early winter snow settled over granite, how spring runoff hollowed the banks beneath old roads, and how a warm wind could turn a stable slope dangerous before a forecast had time to catch up. He could smell rain in the cedar groves hours before clouds crossed the western ridge. He could look at a snowfield and identify where the buried layers had bonded and where they were waiting to fracture. In those years, Leonard had not been a recluse or a roomer. He had been a county avalanche forecaster, a volunteer rescue leader, and one of the most respected backcountry guides in the region. He trained new rescuers, advised road crews, and taught winter safety classes at the community college. When a hunter failed to return, a climbing party lost its route, or a family became trapped beyond a flooded creek, Leonard was often the first name spoken. His younger brother, Daniel, served on the same rescue team. Daniel was quicker to laugh, quicker to trust, and far more comfortable around people. Where Leonard studied maps until he could draw them from memory, Daniel preferred to follow his instincts and tease his older brother for worrying too much. "You could stare at that slope until July," Daniel once told him during a training patrol, "and you could walk onto it without checking once. That's why we make a good team. That's why I carry extra rope." Daniel had laughed and slapped him on the shoulder. They had been brothers, partners, and best friends. Leonard had believed that whatever happened in the mountains, they would face it together. Then came the Frost Hollow Avalanche. A college skier disappeared during a winter storm after leaving a marked route. Temperatures were falling rapidly, visibility was worsening, and the missing man would not survive the night without shelter. Leonard reviewed the snowfall totals, wind direction, slope angle, and available approaches. The safest route required circling the basin and would take at least 6 additional hours. The eastern route crossed below a heavily loaded ridge, but could place the team near the skier before midnight. Daniel stood beside him in the rescue shed while ice struck the metal roof. "You comfortable with the east approach?" Daniel asked. "No," Daniel nodded. "Neither am I. But it may be his only chance. You make the call." Leonard chose the eastern route. Halfway across the basin, the mountain broke above them. The fracture spread across the slope with a sharp, violent sound. Snow, ice, rock, and broken timber accelerated downhill. Leonard remembered Daniel shouting. He remembered a headlamp disappearing beneath white debris. He remembered being lifted, turned, and driven into darkness. He was buried for 19 minutes. When another rescuer found him, Leonard had 2 cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and ice packed into his mouth. Daniel and a second volunteer, Marcus Bell, were recovered hours later. Neither survived. The official investigation concluded that the avalanche had been caused by an unpredictable deep layer failure. Leonard's route choice had fallen within accepted rescue standards. The county did not discipline him. The remaining team members did not blame him. Daniel's widow told him repeatedly that Daniel had understood the risks. Leonard heard only one truth. He had chosen the route. His brother had followed. He resigned from the county, abandoned rescue work, and stopped answering most calls. For months he slept in short bursts and woke convinced that the ceiling was collapsing. He avoided basements, elevators, tunnels, and crowded rooms. Ordinary sounds became warnings. A garbage truck unloading could become an avalanche. A roof shedding snow could leave him gasping against the nearest wall. People tried to help until Leonard made it clear that their concern was unwelcome. Eventually, he left the valley. High above Blackwater Lake stood an abandoned fire lookout built on a narrow ridge. The Forest Service had stopped using it after lightning damaged the communications system, and a newer station was constructed nearer the highway. The structure had one room, windows on every side, a rusted stove, a leaking roof, and a narrow walkway suspended above the trees. Leonard repaired it. He hauled lumber, roofing panels, canned goods, traps, tools, and fuel up the ridge. He restored the water collector and replaced the broken radio antenna. He patched the windows and reinforced the tower supports. In winter, He trapped small game and cut firewood. In summer, he repaired forgotten trails and guided the occasional lost hiker toward the main road without offering his name. He told himself the lookout was a place of punishment. In truth, it was protection. No one depended on him there. No one followed his decisions. No one died because he chose the wrong route. For 7 years, Leonard lived above the valley, while stories collected around him. Some people claimed he had lost his mind. Others said he could predict storms months in advance. A few insisted he kept a rifle by the door and threatened anyone who climbed too near the tower. The truth was less dramatic. Leonard owned a hunting rifle, but it stayed locked in a cabinet. He knew weather better than most people, but he could not perform miracles. He disliked visitors, but he rarely threatened anyone. He simply preferred distance. From the lookout, he could see the lights of Blackwater Valley appear each evening. He watched houses, roads, and farms become small and harmless beneath him. He recorded rainfall, snowfall, temperature, wind speed, river levels, and slope movement in thick journals. Numbers were easier than people. Weather could turn dangerous without pretending otherwise. The storm that brought Celia Rowan into his life arrived in late October. A warm Pacific front stalled over the Cascades and released more rain than the region had received in years. By the second day, culverts overflowed. By the third, hillsides began to slide. The Weather Service warned that saturated ground, high winds, and falling temperatures could create catastrophic conditions across the northern counties. Leonard tracked the pressure changes from the lookout. He circled several readings in his journal and studied the slope below Mercer Station, an abandoned hydroelectric settlement on the south side of the ridge. For several seasons, runoff near the old access road had behaved strangely. Water was gathering in channels that did not exist on older maps. He had noticed heavy equipment moving through protected timber the previous summer. A former logging supervisor named Wade Mercer had offered him money to forget what he had seen. Leonard had refused the money. He had also refused to report the activity. At the time, he believed nothing in the valley concerned him. On the fourth evening of the storm, his radio crackled. At first, he ignored it. Emergency frequencies had been filled all day with road closures, power failures, and rescue requests. Then a woman's voice broke through the static. "Blackwater Station, do you copy?" Leonard stopped writing. The voice returned. "If anyone is monitoring this frequency, I need assistance on Service Route 9. My vehicle is disabled near the old Mercer settlement." Leonard walked to the radio but did not touch it. Static filled the room. The woman tried again. "I am injured. I believe someone has damaged my emergency equipment. I can see lights in the timber." Leonard picked up the microphone. "This is Blackwater Lookout. Identify yourself." There was a pause. "Celia Rowan, County Land Survey Office. What is your condition?" "My left shoulder may be dislocated. I struck my head, but I have remained conscious. The vehicle is stuck against a washout." "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Why are you on that road during a major storm?" "I was conducting a site inspection. The weather deteriorated faster than forecast." Leonard looked toward the rain-covered windows. "Everyone says that after the mountain changes." "I did not call for a lecture. You called for help. I called for someone capable of providing it." He almost switched off the radio. Instead, he asked, "Do you have shelter?" "The vehicle is intact. Food and water. For one night." "Any bleeding?" "Not enough to be immediately dangerous." "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Can you climb?" A longer silence followed. "Probably not well." Leonard unfolded a map. Service Route 9 crossed 2 drainage channels before reaching Mercer Station. Under normal conditions, the trip from the lookout would require 3 hours. In that storm, it could take twice as long. "Have you contacted County Dispatch?" he asked. "My satellite communicator was damaged. The vehicle radio stopped working after the slide. I reached you through a portable survey unit, and the battery is failing." "You said someone damaged your equipment." "I found the antenna cable cut." Leonard looked at the map again. "Who knows you are there?" "My supervisor, the demolition contractor, and representatives from Vey Holdings." The company name caught his attention. Nolan Vey, owner of Vey Holdings, had spent years pushing for approval of a luxury resort above Blackwater Lake. The project promised jobs and tax revenue, but it also required access through protected land near the old hydroelectric settlement. Why were you inspecting Mercer Station? Because the property is scheduled for demolition. What did you find? This conversation can wait until I am no longer sitting beside a road that may disappear. The radio hissed. Mr. Lookout? My name is Leonard. Are you coming, Leonard? He stared at the microphone. Another person's survival. Another route. Another chance to be wrong. He could contact emergency services and let someone else handle it. He switched frequencies. County crews were evacuating homes near Alder Flats. A bridge had collapsed on the northern highway. Helicopters were grounded. The nearest ranger team was trapped behind a slide. No one would reach Celia before morning. Perhaps not even then. Leonard pressed the transmit button. Yes, he said. I'm coming. He moved quickly before fear could make the decision for him. He packed rope, medical supplies, food, water filters, a compact shelter, a flare gun, spare clothing, a folding saw, and the portable radio. He added a dry wool shirt and an insulated coat. Before leaving, he wrote his route and departure time in the weather journal. The habit belonged to his rescue years. For 7 years, his records had been addressed to no one. This entry might matter. He descended into the storm. Rain struck his hood hard enough to blur his vision. Water ran down the trail in muddy sheets. Wind moved through the fir trees with a deep, restless sound. Every few minutes, a branch cracked somewhere in the darkness. At the first drainage, Leonard found the footbridge missing. He searched upstream until he located a fallen cedar narrow enough to cross. He anchored a rope around its trunk, moved slowly above the rushing water, and pulled himself onto the opposite bank. His injured shoulder ached. The radio crackled. Leonard? He stopped beneath a tree. I'm here. I thought the signal was gone. Save the battery. Give me an update. The lights came closer. How many? 2, maybe 3. Did anyone approach the vehicle? A man called my name. Leonard tightened his grip on the radio. What did he say? That he was part of an emergency crew. Did he identify a county unit? No. Did you answer? No. Good. He knew my name. Turn off all interior lights. Stay low. Keep the doors locked. I have a tire iron. That will not help if 3 men decide to enter. It is more helpful than nothing. Despite himself, Leonard respected the answer. I'm about 2 hours away. You said that nearly an hour ago. The trail no longer exists in several places. That is not encouraging. It is accurate. I suppose I should be grateful for your commitment to honesty. You should be grateful, I answered. There was silence. Then Celia said, I am. The transmission ended. Leonard continued downhill. Near midnight, he reached the upper edge of Mercer Station. The abandoned settlement emerged through the trees in broken shapes, concrete foundations, rusted pipes, collapsed roofs, and machinery half swallowed by moss. A county vehicle sat angled against a bank beyond the old maintenance building. Leonard turned off his headlamp. He circled through the trees before approaching. Fresh boot prints crossed the road near the vehicle. They were deep, recent, and belonged to at least 2 men. He tapped softly on the passenger window. A metal object rose inside. It's Leonard. The door unlocked. Celia Rowan stared at him from the driver's seat, gripping a tire iron in her right hand. Her left arm was secured against her chest with a torn piece of fabric. Blood had dried beside her temple. Her wet, dark hair clung to her face, and pain had drawn tight lines around her mouth. She was not what Leonard expected. He had imagined an inexperienced county employee who had driven into a storm without preparation. The woman in front of him looked exhausted, injured, and entirely alert. You came alone, she said. There was no one else available. That does not make it sensible. You would prefer I leave? No. Then move the tire iron. She lowered it. Leonard opened the passenger door and examined her shoulder. The joint was swollen, and her collarbone was tender. It may be fractured. I can move my fingers. That does not rule out a fracture. Can you put it back in place? Not until I know what is broken. Then what exactly was the point of your arrival? To keep you alive long enough to complain to a doctor. Something almost like amusement crossed her face, but pain erased it. Leonard cleaned the cut near her temple, checked her pupils, and replaced the makeshift sling. When he examined the dashboard, he found the emergency antenna cable cut cleanly. The satellite communicator had been smashed against the metal frame beneath the seat. He held the severed cable beneath his flashlight. The slide did not do this. I know. Who did? If I knew that, I would not have spent the last 3 hours hiding from flashlights. What did you find here? Celia looked through the windshield toward the trees. Recently cut timber. Excavation beyond the permitted boundary. Equipment hidden beneath tarps. Someone has altered the natural drainage toward Alder Flats. Her eyes moved back to him. How did you know? I've watched runoff patterns change for 2 years. Did you report it? No. Why not? Because I was not interested in county business. People live in Alder Flats. I know. Then it was not county business. The rebuke was quiet, which made it more difficult to dismiss. Leonard opened the rear cargo door. A waterproof survey case was secured behind the seat. Evidence? Photographs, measurements, soil samples, coordinates, and copies of development plans. He lifted the case. How valuable is this to Vey Holdings? Valuable enough that someone cut my radio and waited for the storm to solve the rest. A flashlight beam moved through the trees below the road. Leonard shut the cargo door. We leave now. Celia looked at the slope above them. I can walk, but climbing will be slow. Slow is better than staying. The vehicle provides shelter. The vehicle is also the first place they will search. A man's voice carried through the rain. Celia Rowan, County Emergency Response. She turned toward the sound. Leonard caught her good arm. Do not answer. What if they are legitimate? They would identify the agency, unit number, and approach route. The man called again. Celia, Nolan sent us to bring you out. Her face changed. That is not an emergency crew. Who is Nolan? Nolan Vey. Leonard secured the survey case inside his pack. Then we move. They climbed into the timber. Celia maintained a steady pace despite her injury. She slipped once, caught herself against a trunk, and refused Leonard's hand when he offered it. I can manage. You are wasting energy proving something I did not question. You looked like you questioned it. I look like this most of the time. That explains the rumors. What rumors? That the mountain man of Blackwater Ridge has forgotten how to speak to human beings. I spoke to you. You issued commands. They kept you alive. For the last 12 minutes. You are welcome. She laughed once, then winced and held her shoulder. Leonard looked at her more carefully. You should not laugh. That may be the strangest medical advice I have ever received. They climbed for nearly an hour before the ground steepened. Leonard stopped often to listen for movement behind them. At the edge of an old logging road, headlights appeared below. An all-terrain vehicle moved slowly through the storm. Celia crouched beside Leonard, behind a fallen tree. How do they know where we are going? They may not. There are only a few routes from the settlement. The vehicle stopped. A man in a yellow raincoat stepped off. Leonard recognized him. Wade Mercer had once supervised timber operations across the county. He lost his license after repeated safety violations, but continued working as a private contractor. 2 summers earlier, Wade had approached Leonard near a trail crossing. $5,000, he had said. All Leonard had to do was ignore the machinery passing through protected land. Leonard had told him to leave. Then Leonard had returned to the ridge and said nothing. That man offered me money, Leonard whispered. For what? To ignore equipment moving through these woods. Celia stared at him. You knew. I knew something was happening. I did not know what. You still should have reported it. Yes. The answer stopped her anger for a moment. Wade shouted from below. Muir, I know that's you. Celia looked at Leonard. He knows you. Apparently, Wade continued. Nobody wants trouble. The woman took company property. Give it back, and we will get both of you down. Celia's jaw tightened. The evidence was collected during an official inspection. I doubt he cares. Wade called again. You are risking her life for paperwork, Leonard. You remember what happens when people follow your routes. The words struck with precision. Leonard felt the avalanche before he heard it. Not the real mountain, but the one that lived inside him. Snow pressed against his chest. Darkness filled his mouth. Daniel called from somewhere he could not reach. Celia touched his arm. Leonard. He did not move. Look at me. His eyes remained on the vehicle below. "You know what he is doing," she said. Leonard forced himself to look at her. "He knows your history. That does not mean he knows your judgment. You know nothing about my judgment. I know you crossed a mountain in a storm for a stranger. I may have crossed it badly, but you crossed it." Wade's flashlight moved uphill. Leonard stood. "This way." They left the logging road and climbed toward the lookout. The ascent took 4 hours. The rain turned to wet snow as they gained elevation. Celia's steps became less steady. Twice, Leonard supported her across exposed ground. The second time, she did not protest. Near dawn, the lookout appeared through the trees. Celia stopped beneath it. "You live there?" "Yes. By choice. Usually. It looks like the wind could carry it away. It has tried." He climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and lit the stove. Warmth spread slowly through the single room. Celia stood near the center, taking in the bunk, shelves, maps, water containers, canned food, tools, and journals. "This is not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Animal hides, a beard reaching your waist, possibly a collection of stolen road signs." "I shave." "I noticed." He helped her remove her soaked jacket, cut away the sleeve of her shirt, and examined the shoulder again. The swelling had worsened. "You need a hospital." I had reached that conclusion. "The radio may work when the storm weakens, and if it does not, we find another route." She watched him prepare a better sling. "You say that as if routes are simple. They are not, but you trust yourself to choose one." "No." The answer came too quickly. Celia studied his face. Before she could ask more, Leonard turned away. He checked the radio, adjusted the antenna, and tried 3 frequencies. Only static answered. Celia sat beside the stove with a blanket around her shoulders. "You have enough supplies for months. Winter lasts months. You truly live here year-round." "Yes. What do you do when you need company?" "I wait until the feeling passes." "That sounds healthy. It has been effective." "Those are not the same thing." Leonard ignored her. By afternoon, snow covered the walkway. The storm had closed every visible route. Through binoculars, Leonard saw 3 figures moving in the forest below. "They found the ridge," he said. Celia joined him at the window. "Can they reach the tower?" "Yes." "Can we defend it?" "It is a wooden room above a staircase. So no." "I did not say no. You considered it." He glanced at her. She looked pale, but her expression remained sharp. "You should sleep. You should stop using medical advice to avoid conversation. I crossed the ridge to rescue you." "That is more conversation than I planned this week." Celia rested against the window frame. "Why did you leave the county?" Leonard continued watching the trees. "You know the story. I know the public version. That is enough. Avalanche forecaster approves a route. Avalanche kills 2 rescuers, including his brother. Investigation says conditions were unpredictable. Forecaster disappears into the mountains." His jaw tightened. "You read newspapers. I read land records, legal filings, and anything connected to places I survey." "Then you know everything." "No. I know what happened. I do not know what you decided it meant." He turned toward her. "It meant I chose a route and 2 men died." "Did you ignore evidence?" "No." "Did you take an unnecessary risk?" "No." "Did you believe the missing skier would die without intervention?" "Yes." "Then you made a terrible decision in a terrible situation." "I made the wrong decision." "Those are not always the same. They are to the dead." Celia was silent. Leonard expected pity. He had learned to recognize it in the pause before someone told him he had done his best. Instead, she said, "My husband died believing I had stopped loving him." Leonard looked at her. She had not mentioned a husband. Celia kept her eyes on the storm. "His name was Thomas. We were married 11 years. The last 2 were difficult. He had taken a job that kept him traveling. I worked constantly. We argued about money, time, and whether we still wanted the same life." "What happened?" "He drove home during an ice storm, after I told him we needed to talk. His truck left the highway." "I'm sorry. So was I." She drew the blanket tighter. "For years, I believed that if I had waited until morning, he would still be alive. If I had sounded kinder on the phone, he would have stayed at the hotel. If I had not asked for an honest conversation at the wrong time, he would have lived. Leonard said nothing. The official report blamed ice and speed, she continued. His family blamed the weather. I blamed a sentence. Why are you telling me? Because guilt is persuasive. It takes one decision and turns it into an entire identity. That does not mean the decision was innocent. No. It means we should be careful before sentencing ourselves for life. Leonard looked toward the lower slope. You still work, live in town, speak to people? Barely, for a while. But you stayed. I had a mortgage. That is not courage. No, Celia said. Sometimes it was only necessity. But necessity kept me alive until courage returned. The words remained between them. That evening, they shared canned stew at the small table. Celia tasted one spoonful and looked at Leonard. What is this? Beef stew. Are you certain? It says so on the can. It may be lying. You were less critical when you were stranded. I had not yet tasted your cooking. He almost smiled. She saw it. There, she said. What? You nearly looked human. I am reconsidering the rescue. You cannot return me now. Wade may accept an exchange. Her laugh was quieter this time. Later, Leonard gave her the bunk and slept in a chair near the stove. He woke after midnight from a dream of collapsing snow. For several seconds, he did not know where he was. His breath came too fast. His hands gripped the chair arms. The room seemed too small. Celia's voice came from the darkness. Leonard! He stood sharply. Go back to sleep. You were calling Daniel. He moved toward the door. Outside, snow swept across the walkway. Celia rose carefully and followed. You should not be standing. You should not be outside without a coat. I do not need supervision. Neither do I. She joined him beneath the overhanging roof. The valley was invisible below. You were buried, she said. He stared into the storm. 19 minutes. Her breath caught. I could not move my arms. I heard the team digging above me. I heard Daniel's beacon through the snow. Then nothing. Celia remained quiet. I still cannot enter enclosed spaces, he continued. I do not use basements. I will not crawl under buildings. The old mine trail is shorter than the ridge path, but I have not taken it in 7 years. You live in a single-room tower, with windows, so you can see the sky. Yes. She stood beside him until his breathing slowed. She did not tell him he was safe. She did not tell him the nightmare was over. She simply remained. The next morning, the radio still failed. The figures below the ridge had moved closer. Leonard unfolded a map on the table. The North Trail crosses a high saddle and reaches a ranger station. How far? 12 miles. With my shoulder, longer than 12 miles. That is not what I asked. 10 to 14 hours. Can we make it? If the saddle holds. And if it does not. We turn back, to men waiting below the tower. Yes. Celia studied the map. What is this line beneath the ridge? Leonard's body tightened before he answered. An old water diversion tunnel. Where does it emerge? Near the abandoned power station. That would put us near the southern road. The tunnel is partially flooded and unstable. How long? Less than 2 miles. Then why is it not our first option? He folded the map. Because we are not using it. She looked at him, understanding slowly. Because it is enclosed. Because it may collapse. Both can be true. It is not safe. Neither is the saddle. I know the mountain. And you know the tunnel. I know enough. Celia did not press further. They left at first light. The North Trail was buried beneath wet snow. Leonard moved ahead, testing the ground and marking unstable sections. Celia followed with the survey case secured across her body. For several hours, the route held. Then they reached the saddle. The western face had collapsed during the night. A wide scar of mud, broken trees, and stone cut across the route. Beyond it, the remaining slope showed fresh cracks. Leonard stopped. We cannot cross. Can we go above it? Too exposed. Below, the slide is still moving. An engine sounded from the valley. Celia looked back. We cannot return to the lookout. No. Then the tunnel. Leonard stared at the destroyed trail. No. Leonard. I said no. You also said there is no other route. There may be another path east. You would need hours to find it. Yes. My shoulder is worsening. We have limited food. Wade's men are behind us. I understand. No, you are repeating facts, because facts are easier than admitting fear. He turned on her. You think I do not know what is at stake. I think you know exactly what is at stake, and that is why you are trying to make the mountain decide for you. His face hardened. You have known me for 2 days. I have known grief for years. That does not make you an expert on mine. No. But I recognize what fear looks like when it disguises itself as caution. Leonard looked away. Celia stepped closer. You built your whole life around never making another decision for anyone. You call this place a punishment. It is not. It is protection. Protection from what? From being needed. The accusation struck deeper because it was true. You keep calling yourself dangerous, she said, because then nobody can ask you to be brave. You have no right. You crossed a mountain to reach me. You carried my evidence. You stayed awake while I slept. Do not tell me you are incapable of responsibility. Tell me you are afraid. His voice dropped. I am afraid. The honesty seemed to still the wind. Celia's expression softened. Then we are finally discussing the same problem. Leonard opened the map again. The western tunnel entrance is 1/2 mile below us. Can we reach it? Yes. Can we cross the tunnel? I do not know. Then we make the best decision we can with the information we have. The words were his own language turned back toward him. He looked at her. You enjoy being difficult. I have been told it is one of my strengths. They descended toward the tunnel. The entrance stood behind a rusted fence, half hidden by brush. Water flowed from the concrete arch in a shallow stream. Leonard cut the old lock. Cold air moved from the darkness. He shined his light inside. The passage began wide but narrowed beyond the first bend. Pipes lined one wall. Water covered the floor. His chest tightened. Snow filled his mouth. Daniel shouted. Leonard stepped back. Celia touched his sleeve. We do not have to enter this second. We may not have much time. Then take 1 minute. He looked at her. You are not going to tell me to breathe. I assumed you already know how. Despite everything, he gave a short laugh. They sheltered beneath a concrete maintenance overhang while Leonard inspected the entrance. Celia rested against the wall, pale with pain. You should take another tablet, he said. You are returning to medical commands. You are returning to bad decisions. I followed you here. Exactly. A sound came from the slope above. Voices. Leonard extinguished the stove. Flashlights appeared through the trees. Wade Mercer approached the fence with 2 men behind him. He raised both hands. Nobody needs to make this worse. Celia stood. You cut the radio. Wade shrugged. I did not personally cut anything. That is not a denial. You found equipment on private land. Protected land. Boundary dispute. I have the county maps. And Nolan has attorneys. Wade looked at Leonard. You know this tunnel floods. Give me the survey case, and we take both of you to a hospital. How generous, Celia said. You need treatment. I need the truth recorded. The truth is negotiable. Only to people who can afford attorneys. Wade's expression cooled. Do not make me drag you out. Leonard stepped between them. You will not touch her. Wade studied him. There he is, the rescue leader. Leonard felt Celia's presence behind him. Wade continued. You could not save your own brother, but now you want to save a county surveyor. Leave. Give me the case. No. One of the men moved toward the fence. Celia whispered, There is a maintenance hatch beside the main entrance. I saw it. Can we reach the tunnel through it? Yes. She lifted the survey case. I will distract them. No. You do not control every decision. This is not a discussion. Good. Then stop talking. Before Leonard could stop her, Celia walked toward the fence. All right, she called. I will give you the evidence. Wade's posture relaxed. You are making the sensible choice. I want a written guarantee of medical transport. You are not in a position to negotiate. I am the only person holding what Nolan wants. Wade moved closer. Celia opened the case. Leonard guided himself backward toward the maintenance hatch. She removed a notebook. This contains the original measurements. Wade reached through the fence. Celia dropped the notebook into the flowing water. Wade swore and bent after it. She threw the case toward Leonard. Now! Leonard caught it, pulled open the maintenance hatch, and pushed the case inside. Celia ran toward him. One of Wade's men grabbed the back of her coat. The wet fabric tore. Leonard caught her good arm and pulled her through the opening. He slammed the hatch shut and forced a locking bar into place. Metal shook behind them. "Move," he said. They entered the tunnel. The passage narrowed quickly. Leonard led with his headlamp. Celia followed, keeping her injured arm close to her body. Water reached their ankles, then their calves. The darkness pressed around Leonard. He counted steps. At 50, his breath shortened. At 100, the ceiling lowered. At 120, he stopped. His body refused to move. The tunnel vanished. Snow surrounded him, his chest compressed beneath impossible weight. He heard Daniel's beacon. He heard nothing. "Leonard!" Celia's voice reached him from behind. "I cannot?" "Yes, you can. You do not know that." "No." The hatch clanged in the distance. Wade's men were forcing it open. Celia moved closer. "Put your hand on the wall." He did not move. "Leonard, put your hand on the wall." He pressed his palm against cold concrete. "What do you feel?" "Stone, not snow." "No." "Can you feel the water?" "Yes." "Can you hear me?" "Yes." "Then you are here." The pounding grew louder behind them. Leonard closed his eyes. Fear did not leave. That was what he had always expected courage to do. He believed brave people became calm, certain, and free of terror. Instead, fear remained exactly where it was. He had to move with it. Leonard opened his eyes. "Stay close." He took another step, then another. The tunnel descended. Water rose to their knees. At a collapsed section, Leonard found a maintenance bypass barely 4 feet high. "We have to crawl," he said. Celia looked into the narrow space. "How far?" 200 yards, possibly less. "My shoulder will not support me. I will go ahead and pull the pack. You crawl on your right forearm and knees. And if the ceiling drops, we keep moving. That is becoming your answer to everything. It is currently useful." Leonard entered first. The ceiling scraped his back. Mud soaked his trousers. His breathing accelerated, but Celia's movements behind him gave him something outside himself to follow. Halfway through, she stopped. "I need a moment. We may not have one. I am aware." Her voice shook. Leonard turned as far as the narrow passage allowed. "Look at me. I cannot see much of you." "Enough." She raised her face toward his headlamp. "Match my breathing," he said. "You hated when I nearly told you to breathe. I have changed my position." Remarkable growth. In slowly, out longer. They breathed together in the darkness. When Celia's trembling eased, they continued. The bypass widened into a service chamber. Water poured through a crack in the wall ahead. Leonard tested the current with his pole. Too strong to cross without a line. He anchored rope around an iron bracket. "I will go first. What if the bracket fails? Then I find another anchor." "That is not what I asked." "No." He stepped into the current. Water struck his legs hard enough to turn him. He moved sideways, gripping the rope. A piece of wood hit his knee. He nearly fell but reached the opposite side. Celia attached herself to the line. With only one useful arm, she struggled to maintain balance. The current pushed her downstream. Leonard tightened the rope. "Keep your feet wide." "I am trying. Move one step at a time." "I am still trying." Her boot slipped. She fell into the water. Leonard hauled the rope and pulled her toward him. She regained her footing, reached the far ledge, and collapsed against the wall. Her face was white with pain. Leonard knelt beside her. "Can you move your fingers?" "Yes." "Any numbness?" "No." "You may have worsened the fracture. I will add it to my list." He wrapped the emergency blanket around her. "You should leave the evidence and move faster," she said. "No. It is slowing you. It matters. So do you." Leonard looked at her. The words seemed to surprise them both. Celia lowered her gaze. "I mean, you cannot help me if you collapse. That is not what you meant. This is not the place." There may not be a better place. Behind them, voices echoed through the tunnel. Celia looked toward the darkness. Then survived long enough to ask again. They moved onward. The final chamber contained a narrow ledge above deep black water. Leonard tested each section before allowing Celia to follow. Halfway around, Wade's flashlight appeared behind them. "Stop!" he shouted. Leonard continued. "You are going to kill her," Wade called. Celia looked back. Wade stood at the chamber entrance. "You do not have to follow him," he said. "You know his history." Leonard's foot stopped. Wade saw it. "He makes bad decisions when people depend on him." Celia turned toward Leonard. "He is not talking to me," she said. "He is right. No. Daniel died because of my route. Daniel died in an avalanche. That route placed him there. And this route brought you to me." Leonard looked at her. Fear, pain, and exhaustion had stripped away every unnecessary expression. She was not offering comfort. She was telling him what she believed. "You are not your worst decision," she said. "Neither am I." The chamber shook as runoff surged through the tunnel. Wade stepped backward. Leonard moved forward. They reached a rusted steel door at the far end. He forced the handle down and pushed. Cold daylight entered. They emerged above the abandoned power station moments before water flooded the lower tunnel. For a long time, neither spoke. Celia sat on wet concrete, cradling her injured arm. Leonard leaned against the wall, shaking. "You did it," she said. "The fear is still there." "I know. I thought it would be gone. Why? Because I crossed." She looked toward the dark entrance. "Maybe courage is not a cure. What is it then? A decision made while the fear remains." Below them, the abandoned power station stood beside the river. They reached it shortly before noon. Most windows were broken, but part of the roof remained intact. Inside an old emergency communications room, Leonard found a repeater connected to backup batteries. Celia removed memory cards from her camera. "Can we transmit these?" "Maybe." Together, they restored power to the terminal. Leonard rewired the repeater, while Celia entered county contacts, state environmental offices, and local newsrooms. The connection failed twice. On the third attempt, the photographs, coordinates, survey notes, and maps transmitted. A confirmation appeared on the screen. Celia stared at it. It went. It went. An engine started outside. Through a broken window, they saw Wade and the other men driving away from the station. The evidence was no longer something they could quietly recover. Leonard activated an emergency beacon. Then there was nothing to do but wait. He built a small fire in a metal drum. Celia sat close to the heat, shivering. "You need to stay awake," he said. "I am awake. Your eyes were closed." "I was thinking. Do it with your eyes open. You are very demanding for a man who spent 7 years avoiding people." "I had forgotten how inconvenient they are." She looked at him across the fire. "Why did you really come? You called. You could have sent the county. They could not reach you. You could have decided I was not your responsibility." "I tried." "What changed?" Leonard considered lying. The storm had taken too much energy for it. "You asked if I was coming. That was all." "No." He looked at the flames. "I heard your voice, and I knew what it sounded like to be alone somewhere dangerous. I knew what it was to wait for someone to choose whether you were worth the risk." Celia's expression softened. "You were worth the risk," he said. She held his gaze. "So were you." A rescue team reached the station 4 hours later. Celia was transported to the hospital with a fractured collarbone, torn ligaments, and severe dehydration. Leonard received treatment for hypothermia, a knee injury, and exhaustion. He left before reporters arrived. By nightfall, the story spread across the state. The photographs showed illegal timber removal, excavation beyond property boundaries, hidden equipment, and drainage channels redirecting runoff toward Alder Flats. Vey Holdings denied ordering the work. Nolan Vey appeared before cameras and expressed concern for Celia's safety while suggesting that unauthorized contractors might have acted without company approval. His attorneys questioned whether Celia had followed county procedures. They accused her of entering a closed area during dangerous weather. They suggested that her evidence had been altered. Celia returned home to medical bills, hostile interviews, and a county review. Her shoulder required surgery and months of therapy. She lived alone in a small house near the edge of town, where rain against the windows now woke her at night. Leonard returned to the ridge. For 4 days, he did not answer the radio. He repaired the antenna, stacked firewood, recorded weather readings, and tried to rebuild the life he had known before Celia's voice entered it. The lookout felt different. Her blanket remained folded on the bunk. A tin cup she had used stood beside the stove. He found one of her hair ties near the table and placed it in a drawer, then took it out again, because hiding it seemed more revealing than leaving it visible. On the 5th evening, the radio crackled. "Blackwater lookout, do you copy?" Leonard stared at it. Celia's voice returned. "I know you can hear me." He picked up the microphone. "You should be resting. I have been resting for 5 days. I am now exceptionally skilled at it. How is your shoulder?" "Attached. That is not a medical update. My doctor says the surgery went well." Leonard looked through the windows at the valley lights. "What do you need?" The question sounded colder than he intended. Celia paused. "A state investigator wants your weather records. They can request copies. They also want testimony." "No. Leonard, I gave you the evidence. You helped preserve it. That does not mean the case is finished. I am not returning to public hearings. Vey Holdings is arguing that the storm alone caused the landslide. Your records show changes in runoff over multiple seasons. The journals can show that. They need interpretation. Find another forecaster. There is no one else with 7 years of measurements from that ridge." He closed his eyes. "I cannot become everyone's solution again. I am not asking you to save anyone. That is always how it begins." Her voice softened. "I am asking you to tell the truth, in a room where people are being paid to confuse it." Leonard said nothing. "You once told me weather repeats when people forget what happened before," she continued. "Do you want these records to matter, or only to fill shelves?" The words angered him because they were accurate. "I did not keep them for court." "Why did you keep them?" "To understand the mountain. Then help people understand what was done to it." He switched off the radio. The next morning, he packed a clean shirt. The county courthouse looked exactly as he remembered it. People recognized him in the lobby. Some whispered, others stared. A former rescue volunteer nodded from across the room. Celia sat near the front of the hearing chamber with her arms secured in a brace. Her hair was pinned back, and pain showed beneath the professional calm of her expression. When she saw Leonard, she stood. "You came. You said the records needed interpretation. They do. That is why I am here." She studied him. "Only that?" "For now." A small smile appeared. "For now is acceptable." The hearing lasted most of the day. Attorneys questioned Leonard's qualifications, mental health, isolation, and history. One asked whether guilt over his brother's death had affected his judgment. Leonard could have denied it. Instead, he said, "Yes." The room became quiet. "It affected my willingness to work with others," he continued. "It did not change rainfall totals, soil saturation, drainage observations, or the location of excavation." He explained how the illegal channels concentrated runoff toward unstable ground above Service Route 9. He compared older maps to recent flow patterns. He described the machinery he had seen and admitted that Wade Mercer had attempted to bribe him. "Why did you not report the offer?" the investigator asked. Leonard looked toward Celia. "Because I had decided that problems in the valley were no longer mine." "Do you still believe that?" "No. The resort permits were suspended pending a full environmental investigation. Emergency funding was approved to reinforce drainage above Alder Flats. Nolan Vey remained free while his attorneys appealed every order. The danger did not disappear. It moved into legal briefs, private meetings, public statements, and carefully manufactured doubt. Celia's recovery took months. The county cleared her of intentional wrongdoing, but reprimanded her for conducting the inspection after severe weather warnings had been issued. She accepted the decision. "I stayed longer than I should have," she told Leonard. "I wanted enough proof that nobody could ignore it." They were sitting outside the lookout on a clear spring afternoon. Patches of snow remained beneath the trees. "You made the best decision you could with the information you had," Leonard said. "That sounds familiar." "It should. Do you believe it when you say it about yourself?" He looked toward the mountains. "Some days. That is progress. Do not sound pleased. I am allowed to be pleased." After the hearing, Leonard began dividing his time between the lookout and the valley. At first, he came down only for legal meetings. Then Celia needed help repairing a damaged porch step. Later, she asked him to inspect a retaining wall behind her house. He claimed the work required one afternoon. It took 3, mostly because Celia insisted on helping with one arm still weak from therapy. "You are holding the level incorrectly," he said. "It is a level. There are limited ways to hold it. You found one of the wrong ones. You enjoy giving orders. I enjoy structures that remain upright. Is that why you live in a tower? That tower has survived 60 years, mostly because you repaired it." "Exactly." She brought him dinner after the wall was finished. He repaired her kitchen cabinet the following week. She brought survey maps to the lookout. He began leaving an extra portion of stew on the stove when he knew she was visiting, though she maintained that his cooking remained an act of endurance rather than hospitality. Their connection did not grow from dramatic declarations. It grew from repetition. Shared coffee before dawn, arguments over maps, long drives to legal meetings, her hand resting briefly on his arm when a crowded room became too much. His quiet presence beside her during physical therapy appointments she pretended not to fear. Celia never tried to rescue Leonard from grief. Leonard never treated Celia as fragile. They learned the difference between helping and controlling, between solitude and abandonment, and between strength and refusal. One evening in early summer, Celia stayed at the lookout after a volunteer weather training session. The last participants left before sunset. Their voices faded down the trail. Celia stood on the walkway, looking across the valley. "This place is beautiful," she said. "It is useful. Those are not opposites." Leonard joined her. Below them, Blackwater Lake reflected the last light. "Why did you agree to train volunteers?" she asked. "Because the county needs better ridge observations." "That sounds official." "It is accurate. It is also incomplete." He leaned against the railing. "I spent years believing rescue failed because I made one wrong decision. And now? Now I think rescue fails when too much responsibility sits with one person." Celia looked at him. "I do not want to be the man everyone waits for. I want to help build a team that does not need a single hero." "That sounds wiser. Do not sound surprised." "I am not surprised. You frequently are. Only by your cooking." He smiled. The expression no longer appeared accidental. Celia moved closer. "Leonard." He knew from her voice that the conversation had changed. "What?" "I do not want to be another person you visit only when there is something to repair." He looked toward the valley. "I do not know how to do this." "What is this?" He turned toward her. "You know. I want to hear you say it." His pulse quickened. "Being close to someone." "You were married?" "No." "Serious relationships?" "Before the Avalanche." "And after?" "No." "Because you did not want one." "Because wanting one would give me something else to lose." Celia absorbed the answer. "I cannot promise you will never lose me." "I know. I cannot promise I will always understand what you need." "I know. I can promise I will not pretend you are healed when you are not. And I will not ask you to leave the mountain." Leonard looked at her. "What are you asking?" "For honesty." "You already have it." "No. I have pieces of it." She stepped close enough that he could feel her warmth in the cold evening air. "I am asking whether what happened between us in that storm mattered only because we survived." He thought of the tunnel, the fire in the power station, her voice on the radio, and the way she had remained outside the lookout during his nightmare. "No." "Then what did it mean?" "It meant I did not want you to die. That is not romance. That is basic decency. I have been told my conversational skills need work. By many people, I imagine. Mostly you." She waited. Leonard looked through the windows at the room he had built to keep the world outside. Then he looked back at Celia. "It meant I wanted you to stay." Her expression softened. "I wanted you to say that. I suspected. And I still want you to stay." Celia lifted her good hand to his face. Leonard did not move away. Their first kiss was quiet, careful, and nothing like rescue. Neither of them was in danger. No storm forced urgency. No one was watching. It was simply a choice. When they separated, Celia rested her forehead against his. "You look frightened." "I am." "So am I." "That is not reassuring. It is honest." He kissed her again. Their relationship developed slowly. Leonard still disappeared to the ridge when nightmares became severe, but he learned to tell Celia before leaving. Celia still worked too many hours, and used professional responsibility to avoid her own exhaustion, but Leonard learned to call her on it. They argued. She accused him of treating silence as a complete conversation. He accused her of accepting every difficult assignment because she believed usefulness was the same as worth. Neither accusation was entirely wrong. They also learned to apologize without turning apology into surrender. Months passed. The investigation uncovered internal documents showing that Vey Holdings executives had approved unauthorized drainage work while describing it as site stabilization. Investors withdrew from the resort project. Nolan Vey continued denying direct knowledge, but the development collapsed beneath legal costs and public scrutiny. Wade Mercer accepted a plea agreement for evidence tampering and obstruction. Alder Flats received state funding for flood protection. The outcome was incomplete, slow, and imperfect. It was also real. In early autumn, Daniel's widow, Rebecca, visited the lookout. Leonard nearly closed the door when he saw her climbing the stairs. Celia was inside sorting maps. She touched Leonard's hand. "I can leave." "No." "Are you sure?" "No." Celia nodded. "I will be inside." Rebecca reached the walkway carrying a small canvas bag. She looked older, though Leonard knew she was thinking the same about him. "I heard about the weather station," she said. "It is not official yet." "I heard about Celia." Leonard glanced toward the windows. "She is inside." "I am glad." He had not expected that. Rebecca rested her hands on the railing. "For years, I thought you stayed away because seeing me hurt. It did. Then I realized you thought I blamed you." Leonard looked down. "Did you?" "For a while. The honesty hurt, but he preferred it to comfort." Rebecca continued. "I blamed you, the mountain, Daniel, the rescue team, the skier, and myself. Grief is not fair. I chose the route. Yes, I was wrong. Maybe. Or maybe you made the best choice available, and the mountain broke in a way no one could predict. 2 people died, and you turned their deaths into a sentence against the rest of your life." Leonard gripped the railing. Rebecca opened the canvas bag and removed Daniel's old compass. They returned this after the recovery. Leonard stared at it. "I cannot take that." "Yes, you can. I do not deserve it." "That sentence has controlled enough years." She placed the compass in his hand. "Daniel trusted you because you cared enough to think before acting. He knew rescue work was dangerous. He was your younger brother, but he was not a child. He made his own choice to follow that route." Leonard closed his fingers around the compass. For the first time in years, he remembered Daniel laughing without immediately seeing him buried beneath snow. The memory hurt. It also carried warmth. Rebecca met Celia before leaving. The conversation was awkward but kind. Afterward, Celia found Leonard sitting on the steps with the compass. "Do you want to talk?" "No." She sat beside him anyway. After several minutes, Leonard said, "He gave me this when we were teenagers. I lost it during a climbing trip. Daniel found it and kept it afterward. So it belonged to both of you, I suppose." Celia rested her shoulder against his. He allowed the wait. By the second winter after the storm, the old lookout had become a seasonal weather and rescue training station. Leonard accepted a part-time county position, but refused the title of rescue director. Celia continued working as a surveyor and environmental investigator. She spent clear weekends at the lookout and stormy ones when road conditions allowed. They did not marry quickly. Neither of them needed a ceremony to prove commitment. They needed time, consistency, and evidence that fear would not decide every future choice. One evening, another storm gathered beyond Blackwater Ridge. Celia stood on the walkway while Leonard checked the radio. The weather service predicted heavy rain but no severe flooding. Volunteer teams had already been notified. Equipment was ready. No single person carried the entire responsibility. Leonard joined Celia outside. Wind lifted loose strands of her hair. "Are you planning to disappear up here all winter?" she asked. "I live here. You also have clothes in my house. 3 shirts, 4, 1 may be yours. It reaches my knees." "That proves nothing." She smiled, then grew serious. "Do you ever think about leaving the mountain?" "Sometimes." "Would you?" "For the right reason." "What qualifies?" Leonard looked through the window at the warm room, repaired radio, shared maps, and 2 cups beside the stove. "You." Celia's eyes softened. That was almost romantic. I regret it already. No, you do not. No. Rain began tapping against the roof. Celia leaned beside him against the railing. Do you still feel like you belong here more than anywhere else? Yes. And where do I belong? Leonard took her hand. Wherever you choose. That is carefully worded. I am learning. She waited. Leonard looked across the darkening valley. I still belong to the mountain, he said. But I do not think belonging has to mean being alone. Celia moved closer. That is better. Inside, the radio remained quiet. Outside, the storm crossed the ridge. Leonard knew fear would return. He knew grief would never vanish completely. There would be nights when he woke beneath imagined snow, mornings when Celia's independence became distance, and arguments when both of them tried to protect themselves instead of trusting each other. Love did not erase the mountain. It did not rewrite the avalanche, restore Daniel, or guarantee that no future decision would end badly. Love simply gave Leonard another way to live with uncertainty. For years, he had believed survival meant removing every person who might be harmed by his choices. Celia taught him that isolation was not responsibility. It was only fear, given a respectable name. He taught her that strength did not require carrying every fight alone. Trust could be practical, deliberate, and built through ordinary acts. A repaired porch, a shared map, a hand offered without force, a truth spoken in a room designed to deny it. The moral they carried from Blackwater Ridge was not that courage defeats fear, or that love cures every wound. It was that people are more than their worst decisions. Guilt may warm the heart, but it should never be allowed to imprison it. Real courage is choosing to remain present while fear still exists, accepting responsibility without surrendering to shame, and allowing